Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jess, sales coach and leadership expert, and I'm really excited and, a little bit apprehensive about today's Monday episode. So normally on a Monday episode, I'm coming to you with a how-to, but recently I was asked for a ditch the dirt kind of episode, which sounds a little bit scary, doesn't it? But I was recently asked for a Ditch the Dirt episode on what the real costs of success actually are when it comes to being in this crazy world of online entrepreneurship. So today I'm going to be sharing the behind the scenes of what exactly it means to be successful, what that means in terms of the pros, what it means in terms of the cons, and what it means in terms of the practicalities. So it's going to be an interesting deep dive into the behind the scenes of my business, and hopefully it'll give you some inspiration and some ideas of where your business might grow to, where it might currently be, and some of the obstacles that you might be facing or have faced, how you can overcome those challenges, and also how you can celebrate some of the successes. Because let's face it, being in business is supposed to be fun the majority of the time. Can't be 100% of the time, otherwise we wouldn't appreciate it, right? So this was such a juicy topic for me to be asked to cover. And I was actually really honored that somebody had asked me to cover what the real success story looks like, because I think so often, and I've said this on the podcast before, I think it's a really common thing to assume that people who've been successful in business just kind of woke up one day and they were like uber successful. So they either went from being really, really unsuccessful, failing all the time, and then just woke up and they were like super successful overnight, or people assume that they were kind of born under a lucky star right from the beginning. And that definitely wasn't the case when it came to my business. I wasn't born under a lucky star, but I did have a proven background in sales. So the one thing I was confident in with my business was that I was always going to be able to make money when I needed to, because that was where my primary skill set was. So I knew that I always had that. And in a way, I was not overconfident about that, but I think I was very comfortable with that situation when I started out. So today what we're going to look at is the journey that I've taken in business to be successful, the pros, the cons, the practicalities behind, running a successful business in the current time in the online space, and also, what it really took. Because I think so often now we only see the kind of before and after and the extremes. And the reality is that actually when you're running your own business, when you set up your own business, you don't just go through those extreme periods. I'm always saying to my clients, it's the small steps that really make the biggest difference. It's the building blocks that actually help keep your business growing and thriving and getting to those next points. So, other thing that I need to mention is that the Dotties, my private membership, is now officially open. It's not going to be a huge launch. I'm not going to go around and do a ton of stuff to promote it. I'm letting you guys on the podcast know, because we are now opening for new Dotties to enroll. Obviously, that is my private membership site. So if you want somewhere where you can be real, raw, non-client facing, where you can come in, ask genuine questions, build the business foundations, learn more about sales, and get real results, then you can head over to the show notes. You can check out the sales page over there. You can check out some of the amazing testimonials from the amazing Dotties, which will sell it much better than I ever could. And if you want to come along and join us, then the cart is now open for you guys. We'll only be opening this cart for poddies until the 21st of July. That happens to be my mum's birthday. And then we've got some exciting stuff going on with the podcast from the 23rd of July. So you'll be really, really busy with podcast stuff after the 21st anyway. And getting some amazing value. I'm seriously so excited about that week. So if you haven't blocked off in your calendar yet, the week beginning the 23rd of July, I know it's the first week of summer holidays for some of you, but please mark it off. Again, there will be a link in the show notes. You can go and you can find out a little bit more about exactly what's happening that week as well. So the real costs of success. Now, when I went back and clarified with this person, what is it exactly that you want to know about what the real costs of success are when it comes to running a business? They said they were interested in things like knowing the numbers that it takes to really support a business, but also the hidden and unexpected costs of success. So what were the things that came up that I probably wasn't expecting about being successful, or that I'd feared about being successful, that had actually happened or hadn't happened. So let's start with the pros, because it's actually quite nice to look at some of the things that I feel like we should all be celebrating when it comes to our businesses. And there are some of these that you can actually celebrate right from the very beginning. So like I said, when I set up my business, obviously we're talking 4 years ago, I had burnt out massively in the corporate world. I'd been diagnosed with a chronic illness. I'd been told that it was my job or my health. And, for me, at the age of, 24, it was actually quite a terrifying prospect to be told that, actually your life isn't going to pan out the way you thought it was going to be. I really imagined that I was going to make, regional director, managing director for a big FTSE 250 firm. I thought that my life was going to go a certain way. I thought that I was always going to be attached to a BlackBerry. And actually, my biggest excitement in the year that I was told that it was my job and my health was the fact that we might be upgrading to iPhones instead of BlackBerries. How sad is that? It was going to be the first time in my life that I would have ever had an iPhone, and I was really, really excited about it. And to date, I've still stuck with Android, so I don't really know what that says about me. But the excitement was kind of short-lived because I was in a job. I was really fortunate that I did work in meritocratic environments. I worked in environments where numbers counted and not much else, which in some senses was really good because if you were a top performer, and I was fortunate to be a top performer, then ultimately you did quite well. You made a reasonable amount of money and you had a relatively good time. The downside to being a top performer was you were only as good as your last deal. It was a high stress environment and, very, very high turnover in terms of staff. So you would meet people, they'd be there for 3 months. They perhaps wouldn't do as well as the company wanted and they'd either leave or they would be managed out, I think is the polite term. So when I came into my business, I was looking for just a different environment. And I really rebelled against my corporate background for quite a long time, for about the first 2 years of my business. I didn't want to know anything about the corporate world. I didn't want to go and work with anyone in the corporate world. I didn't want to think about corporate isms. I didn't want to think about KPIs. I didn't want to think about time management. I didn't want to think about any of the strategies that I'd learned in corporate because I was so anti the corporate world at that point. I felt like I'd been genuinely really let down. I felt like I'd been really successful for companies, and then on being told health or job, suddenly I wasn't, I was dispensable. And that was the first feeling that I remember thinking, actually, this is uncomfortable. And for the first time in my career, I'm not the one that everyone's fighting to keep. In fact, I'm the one that everyone's kind of like, oh, you can only work part-time. Yeah, no, thanks. Bye. And that was a really uncomfortable feeling. And it actually really dented my confidence. When I started my business, I was so anti-corporate. I was so desperate not to be that way that I ended up coming into the online space. I was really nervous. I found it really difficult to position my own brand because I'd always worked for companies who looked down on what they would call Tin Pot and Co. The small businesses who never worried about losing business to them, who never worried about losing market share. And I was really worried about not having a big brand to back me or to back my strategies. I was really concerned about being fully responsible for the first time pretty much in my entire life, and when I say fully responsible, I think there's a big difference between being fully responsible as an entrepreneur and fully responsible as somebody who is employed full time. When you are an entrepreneur and you are fully responsible for yourself, you are paying you. You are managing your time. You are managing your health. There's no backup. And I think for me at 24, that was terrifying. I had a mortgage that I was terrified about. I had this illness that I suddenly had to learn how to cope with. And then I had my safety net taken away. I wasn't working for a big brand. I wasn't getting a salary every month. And it was difficult. And so, from the very beginning for me, some of the pros of being successful were things like celebrating when I signed my first client and realizing that actually having the big brand didn't matter, that I still had the skills that I had been trained with over the last sort of 10 years. That was a big pro of success for me, because having that one success, having that one client signed up meant that I was confident in myself, meant that I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. This is going to work. From that moment on, I was just like, okay, great. So if one person believes in me, more people will believe in me. And it instilled this renewed sense of resilience. And this idea, it really did spark for me this idea of complete personal responsibility, which admittedly I probably hadn't had before. I was somebody who's really good at the blame game. In corporate, we used to call it Teflon shoulders, right? When things didn't go my way, or when figures didn't go my way, or when I didn't get promoted in the time frame that I wanted to, I could always find a reason in my head, if I wanted to, that had stopped me. There was always going to be someone else who just had more qualifications, or they were just luckier when it came to the deals that they got, or they were just, it was okay for them because they had a better section, or they were working in a better industry, or all this kind of stuff. And I could be very like that. And one of the pros of running a successful business, and by successful, I mean it supports itself, it's making money, and it's profitable, even if it's only profitable by 1%, it's still a business, it's still, surviving, it's still thriving, right? When I went into that model of entrepreneurship, suddenly I had to let go of that, and taking ownership of my decisions was a really big pro behind being successful. Suddenly I was taking ownership of the actions that I was taking and the consequences that were being spat out at me, and it made me really think about the interactions I had with people, and, the importance of relationship building, and the soft skills that actually I had learned that had really helped me progress in my career, that would now really help me progress with my business. Now, obviously, those are just kind of tangible things that we don't always really think about, but that actually are really, really important. But some of the things I think that are the biggest pros of running a successful business, obviously we've got wealth. Wealth is a big one. Everyone wants to have money freedom. And I really get that. And I totally wholeheartedly agree with it. In fact, one of the biggest pros of running a successful business for me has been the ability to now talk about money without feeling awkward, or without getting worried that people would think I was arrogant, or that I was really money hungry, or money grabbing, or having any kind of negative feelings towards money. Now I'm very open about the fact that I like financial freedom. And I can say that term without cringing, which I think is progress, right? I think that's really good. But also it's this idea that, people had told me for years, money doesn't buy you happiness, and it doesn't. But I think we can all agree that it does give you the ability to do things that can make you happy, and that can also help other people and make them happy as well. Some of the biggest pros of being successful for me have been around the experiences that I've been able to create for my family and for my friends, based on the level of wealth that I've been able to create. Sam and I recently went for a weekend at the Langham in London. It's an amazing 5-star hotel. We went to see Wicked. We went to the Taste of London festival. We bought a ridiculous amount of stuff, random food items, random wine. We did different things, and I didn't have to worry about the cost of it. I didn't have to worry about the cost of the hotel room. I didn't have to worry about the cost of the train tickets. I didn't have to think, oh my goodness, is this in my budget? When am I getting paid? Is that going to make a big difference to what we can do on this trip or not? I just didn't have to think or stress about money. I don't have to worry about paying my mortgage, and I don't have to worry about when unexpected bills come in. A couple of years ago, some of you might remember that Sam drove my car like a boy racer and broke the timing chain, and it required a £993 bill to be paid. And it was a lot of money. And if I'd have been in my corporate job, I'd have really panicked about that sum. I would have found it really difficult to be like, right, okay, where's that going to come from? Because I would have also been paying out for an expenses account. I would have been paying out for the lifestyle that corporate really determined for me around going out drinking every night and wearing specific clothes and buying specific shoes and all this kind of thing. Whereas when that bill came in, I was a bit like, oh, okay, that's annoying. It doesn't mean I don't value money anymore. And I think there's a really big difference between appreciating money freedom and financial freedom and not valuing the money that you have or the wealth that you've created. I'm somebody who is generally really conservative with cash. And so actually being successful in my business has taught me that I'm smart enough with money that I can make calculated risks. I can take calculated risks and that they will pay off. I'm confident in myself when it comes to money management now. And those are things that I wasn't really before. Maybe that was because I was 24. Maybe it was because I was particularly naive. Maybe it was because I just spent all my money on like loads of crap. I basically funded Itsu for about 3 years because I just couldn't be bothered to make my own lunch and I really liked sushi. It's that kind of thing, that the life skills of running a successful business, or the life skills that running a successful business have given me, have been incredible. And they've been lessons that I haven't, or I don't necessarily think I would have learned anywhere else. Other things have been time freedom. That's been a huge thing for me, especially having the illness that I have. Being able to manage my own time, being able to be responsible for my own time, decide when I want to work, decide when is best for me to work, when actually I should be resting, when I should be taking time out, has meant that I haven't had a burnout in over 3 years. And that's huge. That's really, really huge. I go and I see my neurologist now. I have a consultant neurologist who is amazing. And he's always like, this is great. You're not burning out. You're feeling good. Your energy's good. You stay healthy, you keep fit. And it's those kinds of things. I mean, to be fair, I'm really not as fit as I should be. Let's just throw that out there. But it's one of those things that actually the time freedom that having a successful business allows is huge. I can walk the dog when I want. I can go and do exercise classes if and when I want to. I can take time out and spend it with my family, with my friends, when I want to or when I need to. Last year we had lots of different things going on. Sam was actually away for 3 months. So I was like, oh, great. I can just work for 3 months, get all my stuff done. That's amazing. And then I took basically the entirety of December and January off. And that wasn't something I'd have ever been able to do in a corporate job. In a corporate job, I'd have been working, my 9 to 8 every time that he was away. And then when he got back, I'd have maybe taken a week off and that would have been it. Now my business allows me that flexibility. Earlier this year, we had a few difficulties in the family, and that meant that I had to take time off unexpectedly. And it meant that I had to do things slightly differently and conserve my energy in different ways. And because of the business being at the stage that it's at, it meant that I could do those things without worrying, without fear, and that actually it didn't impact my clients, it didn't impact the revenue that we were generating, and it didn't impact anything that was going to be detrimental to the business moving forward. And that's, I think, something that's really cool. I also think that we see an awful lot of this in the online space. It's how a lot of people used to make their marketing, appealing to that. Do you want to be location free? Do you want to be a digital nomad? Do you want to work from anywhere? Laptop lifestyle, all that kind of stuff. And I used to think about that and be like, oh my God, it would be amazing. I could work from Bali like 1 week, and then I could go to America the next week. And then I kind of realized that actually that just wasn't for me. Having sand in my laptop was not a good option for me. I actually didn't want to travel every single week because that would drive me nuts. I wouldn't get to spend the time with my friends and family. And so one of the biggest learns that I had around this idea of freedom was about, the having the ability and having the confidence to create the business that I wanted and the lifestyle that I wanted, rather than the one that I was told by everyone else that I should have. And I think that does come with having a successful business. You start to care less about what other people tell you should have, and you do more with what you already do have and what you actually are going to enjoy. And I think that's a really, really important thing. It was a really important thing for me in terms of understanding how I was then going to drive my business forward, but also in terms of my own personality. I went from being this boring little vanilla corporate clone, ex-employee, trying to be really diplomatic, trying to be nice to everyone, and hoping that, as a result of being nice to everyone, somebody would buy something from me, to actually expressing my opinions and being the person that I really am. And for some people that is too much, but having that mental toughness or that mental resilience to kind of feel like, you know what, I just don't care. If people don't like me, that's cool. That's up to them. As long as I'm not setting out to intentionally upset or offend or hurt anyone, then I can't control other people's reactions to the things that I do. And that was a huge thing. That was a huge pro of running a successful business. And actually, it's one of the things that my mum, bless her cotton socks, thinks is the best thing about me running my own business. She thinks and feels that my confidence has gone up tenfold. I've gone from being the girl who was always told that she was too much, she was too sarcastic, she was too eccentric, she was too enthusiastic, to just not really giving a toss what anyone else thinks, doing my own thing and making that really work for me, and making that my USP in a world of samey coaches and consultants. So for me, actually, that was a huge pro that was unexpected around running a successful business. And then I think, for me, finally, the pros of running a successful business were, and I'm unsure as to how to word them. So I've kind of gone with prestige, credibility, authority, and respect. I don't know about you, but when I worked in my corporate job, especially at the moment that I realized that I needed to leave, I was very, very replaceable. There was going to be 10 of me walking along, in there. when I started out as a graduate, I was in a suit that kind of made me look about 45, and I was so desperate to just get it right and be the right fit and keep the job and do really well and be gung-ho about the company. And there was going to be 10 or 20 or 30 of me rolling up every single year. And I realized that I was replaceable. And when I came into the online space, I realized just how small a fish I was in a very big pond. I was looking at people like Chris Ducker, like Jill and Josh Stanton, like James Wedmore, like Marie Forleo. And I was looking at it and thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to be on that level. I'm never going to be able to make that happen. And slowly but surely, with the help of some great PR over the years, with the help of, making sure that my clients actually get results, that's the first and foremost, most important thing in my business, with the help of building a tribe of genuine fans who actually want to see me do well because they know that I will support them to the hilt, that propelled me to that kind of level. And so now, I look at myself and I'm like, wow, I'm speaking on Chris Ducker's stage in November. I'm going to be at Upreneur. I'm going to be speaking there. I just this morning signed a contract for a keynote speaking gig in September. I've just finished speaking at 2 large events back to back. And that's a huge thing for me because it's not something I ever thought would happen. And it's been earned. Don't get me wrong. Over the years, I have contributed to countless summits. I've given some absolute gold dust away for people's membership communities. I've given away free trainings. I've showed up on podcasts. I have, done really, really good deeds to other entrepreneurs without wanting anything in return because I really wanted to build my credibility. I really wanted to build my authority in the market. I really wanted to earn the respect of these people that I looked up to. And so actually a pro for me that's really exciting and that I can only see going further and further is this idea of creating and carving out this niche in the marketplace and being renowned for something. That's really, really different. Suddenly I'm not replaceable. Suddenly, I have my own reason, or I have my own tribe that follow me for their own reasons and that, are reassured and that feel like I have this credibility or authority in the marketplace and that respect what I'm trying to do and the mission that I have in the world. And I think that's really, really powerful. But it doesn't come overnight. And I think that's the frustrating thing. When I look back at it now, I go, oh, well, it was only 4 years in the making. Oh yeah, it doesn't seem like long at all. It literally seems like last week that I was, at Upreneur as a delegate thinking, wow, God, I'd love to be on this stage someday. A year later, I'm going to be on that stage. And so things do change really quickly. But when you're at the beginning, it feels like nothing is ever going to change. And I used to really beat myself up that things weren't going quick enough, that I wasn't successful enough, that I wasn't going to be able to market my results enough. And the reality was that wasn't true. I just had to put my reps in, and part of having a successful business is knowing when is the time to work and when is the time to leverage. And for me, I spent a good 3 years working on it. And now I get to leverage and I get to go, okay, cool. Well, I've got this credibility in the market. So actually, I don't necessarily want to take that interview where the person wants to interview me at 11:30 p.m. at night. Actually, now I'm probably going to sit back and be like, no, I would rather not be up at 11:30 p.m. to help you out, but I'm happy to be up at 10 a.m. if that would, be worth it for you. So actually, you can start to control what goes on with your time. You can start to control what goes on with your business, and you can start to leverage that credibility, those reps that you've put in, and start to ask for things to be on your terms or within your boundaries. And that for me was really, really powerful. So the pros of success, or the pros of having a successful business, have been more around the life lessons and the kind of character traits that it's really helped me create in myself than necessarily around the tangible benefits. I mean, the tangible benefits, don't get me wrong, have been really cool. I do have this time freedom thing. I do have the wealth that I want to create. I am really fortunate to be in a position where I can now give back as a result of the money that I earn. And, I do frequently donate to charity, and we have 2 that we support every single year and all this kind of stuff. But actually the real pros for me have been around those character traits that I've developed, the mental resilience, that mental toughness that I've developed, and in all honesty, just pure confidence in myself that I can make things work if I want to and when I want to. And that's been really, really exciting. The cons, however, this is the juicy bit, isn't it? This is where it all gets juicy. The cons of success, however, there have been some real lows, okay? And I want to touch on a few of them because I know that some of them are things that people worry about. Some of them are things that probably will never happen to you. Some of them are things that may happen to you. And I want you to understand how you can overcome them and how they are almost like a rite of passage for every entrepreneur. So the cons of being successful, the biggest con I find of running a successful business is copycats. Copycats drive me nuts. In my head, I'm always thinking, for fuck's sake, like, why can you not get your own content, you lazy buggers? But you do get 2 types of copycats. You get the people who definitely are intentional about it. They're copying your content because they are too lazy to create their own. And they do just want to leverage your content because they think that that's the thing that's making you money. And in reality, it isn't. It's your sales process. It's your personality. It's the fact that you've built a tribe. It's, all those kinds of things, as well as the content that you happen to be putting out there. So you get those intentional copycats. And those are the people that I honestly do just send cease and desists to, that I get my legal team involved, and that we just take down their content, because I used to be really nice about it, and I used to send out little letters that would be like, I'm sure that you didn't mean to actually steal everything I just wrote there word for word, but you kind of did, and actually it would be really quite nice if you wouldn't mind just taking that down because it isn't actually yours. That had 0 effect. Just want to throw that out there. If someone's copying your stuff, go hard or go home. And if they're an intentional copycat, absolutely go hard or go home. Send out a cease and desist. Be very clear about what it is that you want to happen, because otherwise you get into back and forth about, well, I just kind of thought this was okay, and da-da-da. And I don't have time to argue with that anymore. So it does come down to, look, you don't just get to copy my stuff word for word, or you don't just get to change a few words in the sentence because it's still copy. You also get the people who are perhaps unintentionally copying you. And some of the most awkward conversations I've ever had to have as a business owner have been with clients, or with former clients, or with people in my audience who've taken inspiration from what I'm teaching, but have taken it that little bit too far. So instead of taking it for inspiration and being like, right, cool, how am I going to apply that in my business? They've gone, right, cool, how am I going to package that and sell it for myself? And it becomes awkward because, the thing about having a successful business, and I'm very fortunate to have a really loyal and tribe that expands every day, is that people will come back to me and be like, hey, look, this person copied your content and I'm going to tell everyone. And in that situation, when I know that it's perhaps somebody who has just taken a little bit of inspiration a bit too far, I then have to manage that conversation and say, look, I'll have a word with the person. Thanks for letting me know. I really appreciate it. But also then having that slightly awkward, very awkward conversation with that person to say, actually, do you know what? I've had feedback from X amount of people that your content is just really mirroring mine and it's actually losing you business. That's a really tough conversation to have. And it's probably tougher for me than having the cease and desist conversation, because generally 9 times out of 10, people are absolutely mortified. And they're like, oh my God, I would hate for you to think that I was stealing your content. And, you say in that situation, look, I know that you weren't stealing my content. I know that that wasn't your intention. But the fact is, it is stopping your own business thriving. It's stopping your own business being successful because people just think you're trying to rip off somebody who is already successful in that area, And I think that sometimes people overthink it. Sometimes people kind of get very sensitive when we start talking about copycatting. They think, oh my God, is she talking about me or is he talking about me? And the way that I always say to people is, look, if you think that I'm talking about you, I'm probably not. But if you think that I am, start assessing what you're doing in your business that potentially could be stepping over a line. And if there is something that you think, actually, I did just learn that from that person, and then I kind of went out and regurgitated it and just dressed it up in my own words, and I feel a little bit guilty, maybe now is the time to take it down, right? So that's the first con behind running a successful business, is that actually dealing with copycats is really hard. The second con behind having a successful business is that people like to make out that it was easier for you than it is for them. And that's something that really frustrates me. I'm somebody who likes to celebrate everyone. I'm like, yay, every win counts, because like I keep saying, it's the small steps that lead to the big changes. And it's the small steps in your business that make your business successful and that get it where it needs to be. Unfortunately, you're always going to have those people who go, yes, but it was easier for you because. And that honestly drives me crazy, because it makes me feel like people are trying to diminish the hard work that I've had to put in over the last 4 years to get to this level. So often people will say to me, oh yeah, but it was easy for you because you had sales skills. Well, yes, I did have sales skills, but actually I'd never, ever touched marketing. I'd had a whole team in corporate that did marketing for me, so I didn't have to worry about that. I'd never worried about finances. I had never had to be responsible for hiring a team of freelancers and trusting them with my business before. I'd never had to create graphics before. I didn't know how to run a webinar. I'd never managed my own technology. I'd never managed my own legal stuff. All this kind of thing that I had never had to do. So there are plenty of challenges that everyone has to overcome. Your special skill may help you get forward in business in some way. If you're a lawyer, woohoo, that's awesome, because your contracts are going to be shit hot right from the start. But you might not be great at the HR piece. You might not be great at the accountancy piece. It might be that you struggle with invoicing or selling or marketing or whatever that is. So, one of the real cons, or one of the saddest things I find about running a successful business, is that people are very quick to try and find a way to blame you for your success, or to find a way that it must have been easier for you. And over the years, the only way that I've got over that and it stopped bothering me as much is to just think, do you know what? Some people, those people, are probably not going to be as successful as they think they want to be, because they're so focused on finding a reason why it's possible for everyone else, but that it's not going to be as easy for them. And because they set out and think it's going to be harder for me because insert XYZ reason here, they make it hard for them. And that really is the way that it is. So that one is a little bit difficult. I think one of the other things that I found really tough about running a successful business is that people have certain expectations of you, and they have expectations of you when you show up to things like events, or when they meet you for the first time, or when you do something different. And that can be tough. So every time I go to an event, people walk up to me and they go, "You're so much smaller than I thought you would be." And I get it every single event, every single time. I think that people think I must be Amazonian. I always talk about the fact that I'm actually pretty short, like I'm 5'2", and I'm always really open about that, but people always expect me to be taller. And so people come up to me at events all the time and say, "Oh my God, I expected you to be taller." Or, I had a woman at an event that I spoke at recently who said, "I expected your talk to be much more dull." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." And people do feel like they can just say this stuff to you. So people do have expectations, and sometimes you're not going to meet them. Last year there was a particularly controversial thing that I did in my Facebook group, where I decided that I wasn't going to do free 45-minute Facebook Lives every single day in my Facebook group anymore. And actually it really upset a lot of people. because their expectation was that I would continue to just give and 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 not ever stop. And so me resetting that expectation, resetting that boundary and saying, actually, this isn't serving you. This isn't doing the right stuff for you, because every time you're spending 45 minutes with me, you think you're doing the things, but actually you're just consuming content. That went down really badly. Okay, people had an expectation that I would just do this thing forever and that they could just get it for free forever and ever and ever, that nothing would ever change. And when I broke that expectation, when I broke that barrier, people felt upset, and that was hard to deal with, because when people have expectations of you and they're not shy about sharing the gaps potentially between their expectations and the way that you have shown up, it can be painful. People can take it personally. People can make it very personal. And that's something that has been really challenging for me. I have been trolled. I have had people who've sent me emails that have called me fat. I've had people who sent me emails and told me that I'm really arrogant. I've had people who have sent me emails telling me that if I was a nicer person, my particular favorite, if I was a nicer person, then my boyfriend wouldn't go away and, wouldn't work in the army, and fight for democracy and stuff. So whatever. But it's that kind of thing where actually those things do sting. And part of running a successful business is that you are more visible. So actually, you are bound to not meet expectations a little bit more often, because suddenly a lot of people are looking at you and they do feel like from behind their keyboard, they can share whatever the hell they think about you, and that's fine. And again, I tend to worry a lot less about it now. To be honest, I don't read the majority of the, I don't know what to call it, like troll mail that comes in anymore, because I just don't care. And I honestly kind of look at these things and I think, if that person wanted to be successful, or as successful as they said they would want to be, then if they spent a little bit more time on their own business, a little bit less time telling me how I look, 5.5 months pregnant because I've eaten too many pies, they'd probably be where they want to be in business. So for me, that was a con, and it was something that I was really worried about when I started out in my business. I was really worried that people wouldn't like me. I was really worried that I'd be too much. I was really worried that I wouldn't be enough for some people. And, guess what? Turns out that that I am all of those things. But the good thing is that, again, you learn this kind of resilience skill from it. You learn to develop this rhino hide around who am I going to take feedback from, and is it really relevant feedback? Is it something that I need to hear? Is it something that's going to help me improve my customer experience? Is it from somebody that I know and like and trust? And if it's not, then do I really care? I always refer people here to my 3 Fs process. I don't know who I got it from. I don't know who I can credit it to. But if you want to see the 3 Fs, then pop over into the Facebook group. I don't think iTunes would appreciate some of the language that would come out on that particular phrase. But it is that kind of thing. If you are worried about getting trolled, the honest answer is that as you get more visible, as you become more successful, there are certain people who do look to bring you down, quote, a peg or two, unquote. And that's more of a reflection on them than it is on you. So try not to worry about it. Try not to let it stop you doing anything, because honestly, it's not going to happen for a while, unless you happen to be supremely unlucky and get some absolute douche canoe following you around. The likelihood is that the majority of people in your audience just want to see you do well. They're not, hanging out to pick on you or to find immediate fault with you. I think another probably unexpected con of success is having to push through when you really don't want to. One of the things that I see that stops the majority of small business owners being successful as quickly as they would like is the fact that they give up very, very quickly, or they let other things stop them. Now, I'm not saying that personal problems or things that happen in life can't stop you or can't derail you, because honestly they do, and it's just a natural thing. But one of the things that I had to get used to very, very quickly was that I couldn't let the things that were going on in my personal life derail my business or detract from the importance of me showing up to serve my clients or to serve my community. Everyone's been there in business. Everyone's been through something running a business that has been difficult. Perhaps it's the death of a family member. Perhaps it's, an illness. Last year, I had to have 4 different operations to remove cancerous cells from my body, which wasn't a great experience. But outside of my close community, nobody knew. And even they didn't know until later, because it wasn't something that I wanted to share in the raw moment of it. because actually I don't want my clients to pay me and be like, oh, I'm paying you to support you and to show up and to, let you lean on us. Yes, of course, from time to time, things happen. And, I've, in the last 4 years running my own business, I've had family bereavements, I've had illnesses, I've had, personal shifts and relationship changes and all these kinds of things. And they haven't been pleasant. And there have been times where I've said to my community, do you know what? Actually, this, something just happened and I just need a couple of days to process, or I just need some time to myself, or I just need to go ahead and do these things. So bear with me. I will be back, and, I will be back on form. I just need this time to do this first. And because I don't do it that often, because I only do it when something is super, super serious, and I don't take tons of time out, and I don't, expect people to kind of drop everything that they're doing every single time there is an issue, I've been able to retain a large number of my audience for a long, long time, and I firmly believe that when you want to have a successful business and you want to take it past that 2K a month, 3K a month, 5K a month mark, and you want to grow it to something that is 10, 20K plus, sometimes you do just have to suck it up. Life is never going to be perfect all of the time. That's the whole point of life's rich tapestry. Sometimes it's going to be great, sometimes it's going to be shit, and you have to kind of roll with that and you have to move through it. So there are going to be times where you do have to push through personal problems, when you do have to show up even when you're really not feeling it. And there are times where you have to make business decisions that are not based on what's going on for you personally. And for me, that is one of the cons of being successful. Sometimes I have things that go on in my life and I'm just like, I just want to hide away and just be a hermit and, have my Netflix binge and do my own thing and be away from the world. But actually, I have other responsibilities. I have responsibilities to my audience. I might need to show up and do a Q&A for my membership community. It might be that I've arranged to do a webinar or go on somebody else's podcast, or record a session with a client, or do something that helps somebody out. And I don't get the choice to sit and watch Netflix at that particular point in time, So remember that sometimes things happen and emergencies happen. That's very different. But you don't always just get to wallow in your own self-pity. And I think that's a pretty big con behind running a successful business, because I actually used to quite enjoy wallowing in my own self-pity whenever I wanted to, So definitely think about that in your own business, and think about, yes, we all get derailed. Yes, we all have things that come up, but sometimes you have to completely separate those things that are going on from your business and how you're making it work, and the launch that you're currently going through, or the things that you've agreed and committed to show up for. And you have to do those things regardless. Okay. And the other thing I think is, and it's not a con, I think this is more about practicality. So we'll step into that kind of practical space. Is, I've always been taught business is not personal. It was a lesson that I was taught in corporate and that I took right through to my business, and that really I operate with as a person. I don't take things personally unless they are specifically meant personally. So when somebody copies my stuff and I send them a cease and desist, it's not me being personal. It's not being like me thinking, oh, that person's a terrible person, I'm judging them and and how can I make their life awful? I know I'm going to send them the cease and desist. This is my business. I'm protecting my intellectual property. To do that, I need to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and that, somebody's not repurposing my content that can't actually troubleshoot it and that can't actually help people in the way that I can after years of developing in this area. It also means that sometimes you have to make decisions in your business that can potentially be really, really difficult. Hiring decisions. You might go through an interview process and you might have a few people that you really like, but they're just not right for the job. So you can't give them the job. You can't hire them for the project. And actually that's quite difficult sometimes to deliver that news, to say, do you know what, you're great in this capacity, but you're just not right for this project. That's a hard conversation to have. But again, it comes down to, it's not personal, and my biggest piece of advice is that if you have somebody who is working in your business who takes things really personally all of the time, is to get rid of them. Because honestly, they will be the biggest time suck. And it will make them so much less productive, and it will make you so much less productive, because instead of being like, I'm going to give this person feedback, I don't actually like the website you designed for me, let's change it. You have to pussyfoot around the message and start thinking about, well, how can I do it so they don't get in a huff with me? How can I do it so I can keep managing the relationship? Da, 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 da. And that just takes and wastes valuable time and energy. So don't let people be a time suck. Look at what are the business decisions I'm having to make here, and make sure that they're not personal. And equally, when you are giving feedback, don't be personal about it. Don't be like, oh, look, I'm getting rid of you because, you're a terrible person, and I noticed that you watched Love Island. So actually, I think you lack character and integrity. I don't think that about people who watch Love Island, by the way. I watch it and I think it's hilarious. But, you give them feedback and you say, hey, look, this project just wasn't up to standard. Or I didn't actually like the page that you created, or actually this isn't going to work in my business, and so I don't want to use that strategy. Give constructive feedback and expect to be given it in return, and don't take everything personally. If a client says no, it's not because they hate you, it's not because they think you're a bad person, it's a not right now. So don't then go and ghost that person and never help them again, and get them out of your community and all this kind of stuff, because that's not making a business decision. That's taking something personally that probably wasn't personal, and it makes you look like a douche. So, practicalities, the practical perspective of running a successful business. And this is why we kind of talk about, how does it actually run? What time does it take? What money does it require? And the simple fact is that when I started out, I didn't really make massive investments. I did start my business on a relative bootstrap. I invested in a couple of courses that I needed to kind of get me started, to work out how I was even going to be a coach. I invested in, I was really fortunate actually, before I left my corporate job, I was certified in a coaching qualification. So that was great. But I wanted to invest in a couple of courses that would teach me about online business specifically, and, teach me about social media channels and what they were there for. Because up until this point, of setting up my business, I basically used my Facebook page to occasionally put up pictures of the beach and, do the self-congratulatory, yay, it's Mother's Day, and I got a great gift post. And that was literally it, and people tagging me in photos from university drinking tequila and doing ridiculous things. So those are the kinds of things I invested in, because I knew nothing about that stuff. And I needed to learn about algorithms, and I needed to learn about what social media platform was going to be best for me and what I could do with it, and how to use social media and how to interact and engage and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I started. And now I look back at it and I think, well, actually, I've been better off not wasting my money on certain things that I spent out on, and really from the beginning getting a solid harnessing of marketing, because that was the major skill that I lacked. I was really, really good at sales. I could make money whenever I got people to talk to me, but it was, for me, building my tribe that was one of the hardest bits, and having that marketing in place that was working for me when I wasn't working. That was really, really challenging, and it was something I knew nothing about. And that actually, in hindsight, if I was coming back in and building my business again, I would invest in that first. And again, for you, when you're looking at what to invest in your business, I really do get tired of hearing people say, oh, well, I'm going to wait until, and then I'm going to invest in. Now, in my mind, there are certain things that you cannot wait to invest in if you don't have the skills. If you don't have sales skills, you will not have a business. It must be the first thing that you invest in, right? It just has to be. Because if it's not, it doesn't matter how many leads you bring through the door. It doesn't matter how resilient your mindset is. It doesn't matter, what your website looks like, or what your branding looks like, or how your photos are. If you cannot close a sale, if you cannot run a good customer experience to the point that they want to buy from you, you have no business. And a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have said it as plainly as that. I'd have tried to be really nice about it. But, I've got friends who work in marketing, who work in mindset, and they're really experienced, good friends of mine. They're great colleagues. They're people I've brought into my courses as experts and things like that. But it doesn't change the fact. If you cannot make sales, you cannot run a business. End of, period, the end, done, finito, whatever. And that is just something that I don't believe we can shy away from in the industry, and I believe that when we do talk to people about the practicalities of running our businesses, we need to understand what our strengths are in the beginning and what we actually need to invest in to make sure our business works from the get-go. Because I've worked with thousands of people, literally thousands of people, who've all gone off and spent 5K on a website and 2K on branding photos and however much on Facebook ads, but didn't spend anything on learning how to sell. And as a result, sold nothing and come to me and they go, I have no money left to invest. And shit, what do I do? My business is up the creek without a paddle. And that really, really frustrates me. So please make sure, one of the biggest practical lessons about running a successful business is always knowing what you need to go and learn next, what you need to go and invest time and energy and money into learning or developing on next in order to take your business to that next level. You wouldn't go to a heart surgeon who had never been qualified and who just learned how to do CPR. You wouldn't expect him to be able to put a stent in your heart. So why do we expect that when we walk into business, we're going to be able to do the actual skill set that we have, whether that's accountancy or sales or marketing, and then everything else without even bothering to learn about it? Okay. You've really, really got to be looking at what are my strengths, what are my areas of weakness, and how can I learn and develop on a practical level so that I can make sure that I really maximize the whole experience for me and my customers and, my team, if you ever get to that point, so that it all works and that it all works right from the beginning. The other practicality when we start talking about teams is the reality that you can't do everything on your own forever. You can make your first 6 figures on your own and you can do that without a team, and you can do that relatively simply. But there does come a point where actually your time versus money argument in your head becomes really, really strong and they plateau. Suddenly you don't have enough time because you're always serving clients, but you don't have enough money to pay a VA or an assistant or somebody to help you do other things. And that's what I call the tipping point. And at that point you have to be brave, you have to step up, you have to make the investment into a team, into people that can support you, into making the right hires. And that's a really, really scary point, but you cannot do it alone. At the moment, my current team costs come to over 10K a month. Okay. It's a lot. And when I look back, I never even thought I would earn 10K a month. So the fact that I'm now paying my team over 10K a month is huge for me. And it's terrifying, when I look at it and I think, oh God, what if, touch wood and all the things, what if something happened and I couldn't pay my team? Like, what would they do? Because, they have bills and they have stuff. And as a result, my team, right from the very first person that I ever hired, has always been paid before I pay myself. Okay. Every single person in my team is always paid before any money comes my way, because I always want to make sure that those people are looked after. They're the ones who are making things possible for me. So, do you make sure that you are hiring when you need to hire and that you're hiring in the right areas? If I look at my team now, all the people that work for me are on a freelance basis, but we have an accountant, we have a bookkeeper, we have a COO, we have a podcast producer, we have a VA, we have legal people. Up until a couple of months ago, I was working on PR and doing or having done for you PR. That's 7 different people that you become responsible for managing, that you become responsible for communicating with, you become responsible for paying. And those are areas in your business that you really, really may need to actually help take you to that next level. If you don't have contracts, you put yourself at risk. If you want to run a podcast and you're not technically savvy and your sound quality is bound to be crap, then if you don't have a podcast producer, it can make life very, very difficult. If you are somebody like me who is terrible at organizing your own emails, then actually having a VA who can do it for you is a godsend. Think about where, again, it comes down to the skills piece, doesn't it? Think about where your skills really are and your strengths really are, and think about where they're not, and hire people who are complementary to you and who have skills that you don't, and that can support the growth of your business and that are actually united to the common cause of growing your business. One of the things I'm always saying to my team is that if my business succeeds, so does yours. But if it doesn't, then yours doesn't either, because we're working on something that's effectively stagnant and that's not going to make any more money, and therefore doesn't help me give them more hours, doesn't help me help them to grow or develop in their own skill sets. Okay. I think another practical part of having a successful business is learning to let go a little bit. I am very, very fastidious. I was going to say anally retentive, but went with fastidious about how I want things done and what I want to be done and how I want the business to run and the mission statement that I have and the impact that I want to make and the client experience that I always want to give and all these kinds of things. And so there was always this part of me that was just like, nobody else can do it like I can. And it's true, nobody else can. And probably other people don't even actually want to, because it's not their business, it's not their baby. So there does come a point where, from a practical perspective, you have to learn to relax a bit. You have to learn that you can let go of the reins a little bit, that you don't have to micromanage the poor people who are coming into your business and trying to help you grow it. And from a practical perspective, that does mean take holidays and actually take time off. Don't sit there with your laptop until 2 a.m. every single night trying to write your blogs and record a podcast and do a vlog and all that kind of stuff, because the practical perspective of that is that you will burn out and you will do it very quickly, and it will not help you build your business in any way, shape or form. So, from a practical perspective, always make sure that you're taking care of the number one resource in your business. And ultimately that is you. So, stay happy, stay healthy, take regular rest breaks, don't work 24/7. Make sure you hire into your team when you need to. Make sure you're paying yourself right from the beginning. I know that there's this big temptation to just reinvest everything back into the business, but please make sure that you can pay your bills, make sure you can pay your mortgage. If you need extra financial support, get a part-time job. It's not, it's not a heinous crime. It's about making sure that you give your business and yourself the best possible opportunity to succeed from a practical level. I always say to people, when I was a couple of years into my business, there was an investment I really wanted to make and I just didn't have the cash flow for it. And I just couldn't make it work. And I was talking to Sam about it and I said, look, it's this thing I really want to do and I'm trying to figure out a way of making it work. And, I don't really know how I'm going to do that. And he said, well, I'll lend you the money. And, I'm a very, very proud person. So I went back and forwards for a few weeks. And I was like, no, I can't do it. Yes, I can. No, I can't. Yes, I can. And eventually we got a contract drawn up and I agreed that I would pay him back on a certain date and I would pay him back with a 10% interest rate. So we always joke that he's made more interest from me than he has from any other investment that he's probably ever going to make over the years. But you can look for support. It is okay on a practical level to look for funding. If you need to take out a loan on something that is proven, if you've done your due diligence, we're going to say, don't just take out a loan on any old thing. But, if you need that cash flow support, it's okay to ask for it. It's not something that is bad. Just make sure you do your due diligence around it. Make sure that you are going to be capable of paying it back. Make sure you're not putting yourself into a really awkward financial position. So when we are talking about practicalities of running a successful business, you have to be okay with calculated risk. You have to be okay when it comes to investing at new levels in terms of time, in terms of energy, in terms of money, for sure. You have to be able to trust in your hiring strategy, and you have to be able to get to that tipping point and realize and recognize when you need to make new hires, when you need to launch, when you need to rest, when you need to take better care of yourself, when you need to actually do the work instead of just kind of hanging out, living the lifestyle all day. So from a practical perspective of running a successful business, there are lots of elements that go into it. And, the biggest things that I've learned have been around managing my money, making sure that I have an effective growth strategy, and making sure that I look after me, because I'm the number one resource in my business. And without me, it kind of wouldn't have functioned and wouldn't have grown past a certain level. Now I'm really lucky because I have made really good hires and I've made really good decisions around investing in my business and the kinds of things that I'm taking forward and the angle that I have in the market and the offers that I'm putting out there, that actually I can be really confident and I can generate this predictable income, and I can be really proud of that because I took the small steps. Okay. So if you are sat there and you're at the beginning part of your business, or you're 6 months in or 12 months in, and you're thinking, oh God, it all feels overwhelming at the moment and it all feels a bit scary, or, there's so much that I don't know, don't worry. the biggest thing that I would say is really learn to step back and take an objective perspective for you and your business and look at it and go, okay, what have I achieved up to now? And start having that mantra in your head of what got me here won't get me there. And always be thinking about what needs to be next for me. Doesn't mean that you don't celebrate the things you've already achieved. Doesn't mean you don't celebrate the wins that you already have. But you need to always be thinking, okay, if I want to get to the next level, what is that next level? What does that require from me in terms of time? What does it require from me in terms of investment? What does it require from me in terms of energy? What does it require from me in terms of the person that I'm becoming, or new boundaries that I need to set, or a new mindset that I need to sit in before I go ahead and do that? Okay. So that's my little perspective on the real side and the real cost of success and running a successful business. There are huge pros. I am absolutely 1,000,000,000% unemployable. I don't think I could ever get a job again, mainly because nobody would let me work in my pajamas or just turn up whenever I wanted or go on holiday whenever I wanted, or, pay me as much as I want to be paid. But equally, there have been cons. I have had to embrace things like total personal responsibility, managing expectations of clients and prospective clients and audience members, having difficult things happen, learning to manage copycats, having customers that are difficult and awkward, and how you manage their expectations and how you manage other people who, are just trolls or keyboard warriors. And then the practical sides of things, how you actually make your business work, when to invest, what in, why. Those kinds of things, they are big concepts, and honestly, they don't change. It doesn't matter what level you are in business. You're always going to come up against these same things, but you will just come up against them at different levels, and they will be different levels of intensity. All right. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please make sure that you hit the download button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss another episode. And if you want to get in touch, it's jessica@jessicalorimer.com. Let me know what your experience has been of building an online business or an offline business, and whether or not your pros, cons, and practicalities have been similar to mine. And if you do want any advice on what direction to take next, if you want any advice on, what level you're currently at and what you need to be investing in, or where you need to be spending your time, or, how to overcome certain cons that you're experiencing or obstacles that you're experiencing in your business, just get in touch. We're always happy to put you in touch with different people, different resources, or anything that we think is going to make your life and your journey that little bit easier. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. Come back, check in on Friday. There's going to be an awesome episode with one of my favorite people on the internet, so that will be really exciting. And like I say, look out in those show notes, because something really exciting is coming the week of the 23rd of July. So if you are looking at that week, you're blocking it off in your diary because you want to make more money over the summer holidays without hustling, block that week off. Check out the show notes and go and get yourself signed up, because it's going to be a very, very exciting week. I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining me.